When I asked for the date so I could book my flight and a simple dress, my son's new wife smiled like a locked door and said the wedding had been, yesterday, a private thing for special people, then pivoted to remind me where to send money. 7 days later, she sobbed into my voicemail about overdue bills and late fees, begging me to rescue a party I hadn't been allowed to attend. And I realized their secret wasn't love, it was leverage with a deadline attached. You're watching Revenge Files. Subscribe for a new twist daily. I'm Elaine Porter, 66, retired school nurse from Columbus, Ohio. I raised my son on coupons and double shifts after his dad left. I've lived frugal and straight, paid off my little ranch on Carl Road, and never stiffed a soul. I'm not rich, but I'm careful, and that reads as strength to certain people and as a threat to others. Dylan brought Naomi into my life in March, on a rainy Saturday when the maples along North High were just fuzzing green. She was stylish and loud, all eyelash extensions and perfect nails. I didn't mind the volume. What I minded was the way she turned her head when I spoke, like the sound had to pass inspection before it could enter the room. Still, I offered the same thing I'd offered my sister's kids, a wedding gift capped at $10,000, released directly to vendors after I saw actual invoices in the seating chart, because I like to know where a dollar lands. Naomi didn't like that. She wanted no strings. I explained it wasn't strings, it was receipts. She told me her mother never needed receipts. I said, I'm not your mother. By late April, I still had no date to request time off from my clinic volunteer shifts. When I pressed, Naomi floated a Saturday in May in an airy tone that meant maybe. She hinted about an after-party upgrade at a downtown venue called the Terrace at Scioto Mile. She mentioned uplighting and a champagne wall like they were as necessary as oxygen. I repeated my rules, invoices to me, and I'd pay vendors directly. She stopped texting for 3 days. Then on May 8, Monday morning, I called Dylan for the flight details. Naomi answered his phone. We already married yesterday, she said, voice sugar sour. Only special people were invited. I went quiet so I wouldn't say something I'd regret. It wasn't the wedding I missed, it was being treated like a billfold with feet. If you already married, I said, then you won't need money. She laughed, low. Oh, we still need money. When I told her I'd stick to my original offer, pay vendors directly after invoices, she ended the call with a cheerful, we'll see. The next text I sent was to Dylan, congratulations, I love you. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. No response. A week later, May 15 at 7:12 a.m., Naomi called crying. The bills are overdue, she said, voice clogged. The Terrace is charging $500 a day after Friday. The florist is threatening collections. Did you send the money? She was breathless in a way I recognized from the school clinic. Panic used to push people. Email me the invoices, Naomi, I said. I'll review and pay the vendors directly up to the gift amount. No cash to you. She sobbed harder, then hung up. But the invoices arrived within the hour from a Gmail account with her name. 3 PDFs. My hands shook a little as I printed them on my old brother printer. I read line by line, yellow highlighter steady as a pulse. The Terrace invoice listed responsible party Elaine M. Porter. I didn't like that. The signature at the bottom looked like mine, but the middle initial was wrong, and I never scrawl my E's like that. The balance due showed $7,840 with late fee $500 day starting May 20. The florist's invoice from a shop on Parsons Avenue listed my home address under billing. The photographer's contract included a clause that any unpaid balance could be recovered from guarantor. My name again. My stomach went cold. I called the Terrace and asked for billing. A woman named Kendra answered. I gave the invoice number and asked a straight question. Who authorized listing me as responsible? She hesitated. The bride said you were covering everything. Do you have a signed card on file from me? I asked. Actual signature, photocopy of my ID? No, ma'am. Then remove my name from anything that suggests I guaranteed payment. I slowed my words so there was no mist. I never agreed to that. Kendra said she'd make a note. Notes don't stop collection notices. I asked for her email and sent a written refusal the same hour, certified mail queued up for afternoon. Then I drove to my credit union on West 5th and asked the branch manager, an honest woman named Joy, to look at the invoice signature. She studied it and shook her head. Not yours, she said. She wrote a short letter on letterhead stating the signature didn't match my cards on file as of May 2023. But then the florist called. A man named Leo with a voice like bandages. Elaine, we were told you guaranteed the flowers, he said. We're just a small shop. We ordered rare garden roses. I didn't guarantee anything, I said. Send me your signed contract and the bride's acknowledgement. If the product was delivered, I'll consider paying you directly up to the amount I offered as a gift, but remove my address from your billing system. I used my clinic tone, the one that says, I'll hold your hand while I pierce your ear with a vaccine needle. The contracts landed in my inbox by noon. None contained my real signature. 2 were typed Elaine Porter in a cursive font that made me snort. I saved every file in a folder named Wedding, not my debt, and a second folder labeled Exhibits. I'm a nurse. I chart for a living. Documentation calms me. I called Naomi and laid out terms. I'll pay up to $10,000 directly to your vendors, minus any late fees you caused by hiding the date, I said. I will not pay $500 a day to a venue I wasn't invited to attend. Any vendor listing me as responsible must fix that in writing, she hissed. This is control, Elaine. This is boundary, I said. And it comes with a clock. You have until Friday to get me corrected invoices and a short statement acknowledging I'm a gift giver, not a guarantor. If not, I file a police report for the forged signature and notify the Ohio Attorney General's Consumer Division. She hung up. Except Dylan called that night from a number I didn't recognize. He sounded tired. Mom, can you just send money so Naomi can fix this? He asked. It's snowballing. What part of removing my name is hard? I asked gently. I'll help by paying vendors directly and only after they acknowledge I'm not responsible for late fees. You and Naomi created the urgency by hiding the wedding. I won't fund disrespect. He was quiet, then said, She thought you'd control the guest list. She didn't want drama. Darling, the drama started when she called me after the fact, I said. I can't be your emergency fund and your villain simultaneously. On Wednesday, a letter arrived from a collection agency representing the terrace. It demanded $7,840 within 10 days, or they'd report the debt. They'd addressed it to me. The envelope felt heavy with implication. I sat at my dining table with a cup of black coffee and reread every line. Then I drafted a dispute under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, stating I disputed the debt, demanded validation, and instructed them to cease telephone contact. I mailed it certified and kept the receipt with a paperclip like a tiny handcuff. Thursday afternoon, Naomi posted on Instagram an aerial shot of the Scioto fountain, captioned, Only special people were invited. I don't stalk social media, but my sister texted it to me with a row of angry faces. The post stung, not because I wasn't special in her eyes, but because she used special like a weapon. Friday came with no corrected invoices, so I drove to Columbus Police at the substation on North High and filed a report for forgery, attaching copies of the Elaine M. Porter signature and Joy's letter from my credit union. The officer took it seriously once he saw the late fees and the collection letter. People think cursive fonts are magic, he said, dry. He gave me an incident number. I walked out feeling steadier. Then I made my next call, to the Ohio Attorney General's Consumer Protection Helpline. I submitted a complaint about the venue and florist using my name without authorization and seeking to collect. They don't swoop in like a TV show, but a complaint number is a gear in a machine, and machines move if you push long enough. By Monday, the venue's lawyer emailed me a curt letter saying they'd review the matter. I replied with a one-sentence offer. I'd pay $4,000 directly to the terrace, my gift portion, if they reissued the invoice solely to Naomi Lane and Dylan Porter, waived late fees assigned to me, and sent confirmation to the collection agency to remove my name. I gave them a 7-day expiration. Clocks work on more than brides. But then something else landed, a fourth invoice. This one from a bridal glam company for $1,320. Addressed to Elaine Porter. Bill to... It included a text screenshot where Naomi had written, Elaine is footing everything, use her address. My mouth went dry. I called Dylan again. This is not a misunderstanding, I said. This is misrepresentation in writing. He sounded small. She said you promised. I promised help with receipts and respect, I said. If you two want me out of your wedding, keep me out of your debt. That night, Naomi sent me a single text, you'll regret this. I put my phone on the charger and slept 8 hours like a nurse the day after flu clinic. Tuesday, I drove to the Franklin County Probate Court and paid for a certified copy of their marriage record. Paper speaks. If anyone needed proof of what date they married, there it was. May 7, 2023. I added it to exhibits. Then I went to the terrace lobby with a calm smile and asked for Kendra. I handed her a thin folder, my police report incident number, Joy's letter about the signature, the ag complaint, and my written offer. "I'm not your enemy," I told her. "I'm a grandmother with a file cabinet. Fix the paperwork and you'll get paid what was promised." She glanced at the police report and swallowed. "I'll talk to our counsel." By Thursday, the collection agency emailed me that the account was on hold pending validation. Progress is slow until it isn't. Friday morning, the terrace accepted my offer, waived late fees, and sent an email to collections removing my name. I paid them $4,000 by ACH directly from my credit union while humming Blessed Assurance. I forwarded the receipt to Dylan with the short note I honored my gift, but our story didn't end with the venue. The florist and glam company remained. I told the florist I'd pay half if they sent me a corrected invoice and an apology for using my address. Leo sent both within an hour. I paid $730 and kept his apology like a pressed leaf. The glam company dug in. Their owner, a woman named Tasha, claimed Naomi had shown her my guarantee. I asked for a copy. She sent a picture of the cursive font Elaine Porter addendum. I stared until the letters blurred, then sent her my police incident number and the AG complaint. I offered $250 as goodwill to close their file. She refused and sent the account to collections. Except I wanted a courtroom. Not always, but sometimes standing in a room with fluorescent lights and a seal on the wall turns fog to shape. On June 2nd, I filed a small claims case against Naomi and the glam company for misrepresentation and unauthorized use of my name. Damages of $1,275 for time off work, postage, certified mail, and the collections stress. I attached exhibits like a school project. The clerk stamped the date and the August 1 hearing. I mailed Naomi the notice by certified mail. She signed the green card. For 6 weeks, the case sat like a stone in a shoe. Dylan drifted, calling less, texting less. I left one message every Sunday, "I love you." Then a mid-July voicemail from Naomi's number arrived, but it wasn't Naomi. It was a man's voice, slurred. "You don't want enemies," he said. "Drop the case." He hung up. I pressed the message to my ear and listened twice, then saved it and added it to exhibits under a new divider, harassment. I called the non-emergency line and filed a supplemental report. The week before the hearing, Dylan finally came over. He looked thinner. He stared at the framed cross-stitch above my couch, "Do small things with great love," and rubbed his face. "We're behind on everything," he said. "The wedding was bigger than we planned, then planned smaller," I said gently. "The cheapest word is no." He glanced at my file. "Are you really going through with court?" "Yes," I said, "not to punish you, to set a record that my name isn't a credit card. You two taught a venue to respect paper. Now your wife needs to learn it too." August 1 came hot and cloudless. Franklin County Municipal Court felt like a library had married a bus station. I wore my navy dress and the pearls my mother left me, because clothes are armor. Naomi arrived late, sunglasses on indoors, the kind of gesture that tells you the stage is important. Tasha from the glam company came too, sharp suit, stiff smile. When the magistrate called our case, I stood, palms dry. I stated my name and that I was self-represented. The magistrate asked what I sought. A finding that the defendants used my name without permission to obtain services and to pursue payment, I said. I seek $1,275 for costs of disputing collections and my time, plus an order that they correct their records. I laid out the timeline like steps: my original offer, the secret wedding, the invoices listing me as responsible, the forged cursive signature, the police report, the ag complaint, the venue resolution, the florist apology, the lingering glam bill and collection. I handed up exhibits. The magistrate glanced through and nodded occasionally. Naomi's defense was that she'd misunderstood my gift. The magistrate didn't blink. "Did Miss Porter sign anything guaranteeing payment?" he asked. Naomi said no. Tasha tried to argue reliance on Naomi's statement. The magistrate asked whether she had verified with me. She had not. He peered over his glasses. "Then you relied at your own risk." I played the voicemail from the unknown man. The sound filled the small room with a sour hum. Naomi went rigid. Tasha looked at Naomi with a frown, as if a new cost had appeared. The magistrate issued his decision from the bench. "I find for the plaintiff in the amount of $1,275 plus court costs," he said. Defendants shall not list MS Porter as responsible party on any invoice without written authorization. Any collection activity naming MS Porter shall cease. He slid copies to the clerk. The sound my heart made was not a cheer, it was a door latch clicking open. Outside the courtroom, Naomi spun toward me. "You made me look small," she said. I picked up my folder. "You made yourself look small," I said. "I made myself look like someone who pays attention. The glam company paid the judgment within 20 days rather than face a garnishment." I set the check on my dining table and thought about cashing it. Then I did, because mercy and boundaries can share a room as long as the clock is running. Dylan called that night. "She's furious," he said. "She's embarrassed," I said. "There's a difference." He came over 2 days later without Naomi. He stared at the dog-eared exhibits on my table. "You really did all this," he said softly. "I did the minimum required," I said. "I didn't call the radio. I didn't post. I just wrote things down and showed up where rules live." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I married a woman who thinks problems are solved by ignoring them. Then teach her or she'll teach you," I said. "And stop letting people make me the villain when my terms were clear." 2 weeks later, Naomi texted me a single line. "I acknowledge you were a gift giver, not a guarantor." I saved it, printed it, filed it under closure like I was finishing a chapter in a thick book. Life settled. I planted mums along the front walk. I went back to the clinic on Wednesdays and to the library book sale on Saturdays, the kind where the air smells like dust and hope. The terrace sent me a thank you note for the prompt payment and for helping us correct our process, which was corporate for "we'll ask before we assume." The florist slipped a small bouquet into my hands at the farmer's market on a breezy Sunday and said, "For always paying what you say you will." I set the flowers in my mother's milk glass and let them scent the kitchen while the evening news murmured about storms. But then, because people are calendars, May came again, and with it their anniversary. Naomi mailed engraved invitations for a celebration of love at a rented hall in Gehenna. My name was printed correctly on the envelope, my address untouched. The invitation asked for no gifts. "Your presence is enough." My presence wasn't necessary, as it turns out. I sent a simple card, wishing you the wisdom to live inside your means and your word. No check, no lecture, just quiet. Late that summer, Dylan and Naomi separated for a while. They were two people with different definitions of enough. I met my son at a coffee shop on North Broadway, and he said he wasn't sure what he'd do next. I held his hand and told him I loved him. He asked if I thought I'd been harsh. I shook my head. "I was honest in March," I said. In May I repeated myself. In June I wrote it down. In August a magistrate read it aloud. "That isn't harsh, that's a map." He smiled a little. "You always were a map person." The last loose thread was the collection agency's report that had briefly tagged my credit file while validation was pending. I sent the magistrate's judgment and a firm letter. They scrubbed it and mailed me a confirmation. I put it in my fireproof box with my house deed and my mother's will, the pages we keep when the world is loud. One evening in September, I ran into Kendra from the terrace at the grocery store, staring at a wall of canned tomatoes like the code changed. She recognized me and said, "We changed our intake forms. No more responsible party unless a card is on file and we call the person." She thanked me again, but her eyes were careful, like she was trying to place where I fit. I don't need to fit into her story, I just needed to fit into mine. Naomi eventually paid her vendors through payment plans that required no fonts, only real signatures. She posted fewer captions about being special and more about budgeting. Maybe that was growth. Maybe it was branding. People evolve and people market, sometimes it's the same motion. As for me, I put the $10,000 gift I didn't spend into a 12-month CD at 4.4% and sent Dylan a photo of the certificate with a caption, "Future down payment, future baby fund, future dog surgery emergency." Grows either way. He texted back a heart and a ghost emoji, his way of admitting he'd learned something without saying he'd learned it. On the first cold day of November, I opened the front closet to dig out my wool coat and found the pearl clutch I'd planned to carry to the wedding. The tag still dangled. I held it, felt its weight, then set it on the hall table for a friend who likes glitz. A few minutes later my phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail and listened after. Naomi's voice, small. "I'm sorry for the way I handled everything," she said. "I thought money made me special. I was wrong." She hung up without asking for anything. I didn't call back, I didn't need words. The record said enough, the checks cleared, the late fees reversed, my name intact. My revenge, if you want to call it that, was a steady hand, a cop's incident number, a clerk's stamp, and the patience to let a calendar be my ally. When Naomi finally did what I'd asked months earlier, put it in writing, I didn't gloat. I pressed the voicemail to my ear and let the quiet at the end ring like a bell. People love to be special. They forget that special isn't an invitation or a caption. It's how you behave when you want something from someone you cannot command. The night Naomi told me I wasn't special enough to attend my son's wedding, she asked for my money like it was a faucet. Months later, when she called again about overdue bills, I replied with what I had already said, and then lived by. Didn't I tell you? And I had. I told her with receipts, with letters, with a courtroom. I told her in a language she finally understood. Paper.